This set of short videos will show you at a high level the steps required to use the Localization Toolkit to localize your application. This video takes approximately 20 minutes. The localization process includes these steps. Localize your application, which you can do with the Localization Toolkit, localize the AR system server, and localize BMC Remedy mid-tier. This demo mainly focuses on using the Localization Toolkit. At the end of the demo, the steps for localizing the server forms and the mid-tier are briefly covered. For more details about how to perform the steps outlined in the demo, see the white paper called Localizing Your BMC Remedy Action Request System Application. Let's begin by talking about the Localization Toolkit. The toolkit affects the application's forms, associated views, fields, message catalog entries, and configuration data. These are the steps required to localize your application. This demo covers each step at a high level. Take a moment to read through the steps, and in this demo we will localize a video store application. The first step is to prepare your application to be localized. This includes preparing the server, application's forms, views, and fields, and configuration data. To prepare the server, open the AR System Administration Server Information form. Click the Advanced tab and select the Localize Server checkbox. This enables such tasks as searching entries in localized forms and using the AR System Message Catalog to load system messages. By default, all forms, views, and fields are configured to be localized, so you should not have to manually set each property. Conversely, if you have specific forms, views, or fields that you do not want localized, set that property accordingly. For more details, see the white paper called Localizing Your BMC Remedy Action Request System Application. If you have configuration data in back-end forms, for example a form used to populate menus, make sure that the form contains a locale field. The entries for each back-end form should contain the locale from which you are translating. For example, if you are translating from English data, then each data record must have an EN as the locale value. Next, make sure that at least one of the following conditions is met. A GUID field, field ID 179, is defined, or at least one unique index is defined with the locale field, field ID 160, included in it. Finally, select the Localize Form Data checkbox. For each field of forms with configuration data, set the Localize Data field property to True. To localize templates, on the AR System Resource Definitions form, make sure that the application field contains the application's name in each entry. This step ensures that the Localization Toolkit can identify the templates to extract and which application folder to place the files in. Let's see these settings in BMC Remedy Developer Studio. This form includes a locale field. The field ID is 160. Here is a GUID field, and the ID is 179. To create a unique index, choose Form, Form Properties, then click Indexes, click New, select Yes under Unique Index, and add the locale field to the index. To set the Localize Form Data checkbox, choose Form, Form Properties, and on the Basic panel, select the checkbox. To set the Localize Data field property, select the field whose data you want to localize, and under the Properties tab, set the Localize Data property to True. The next step is to install the Localization Toolkit. To install the Localization Toolkit, simply extract the Localization Toolkit zip file directly into your BMC Remedy Developer Studio installation directory. After the extraction, you will see an l10n toolkit.bat file. The Localization Toolkit plugins are placed in the Plugins folder with the other BMC Remedy Developer Studio plugins. Finally, you will see a Localization Package Definitions branch under each server in the AR System Navigator of BMC Remedy Developer Studio. Next, you need to set the root folder. The root folder stores the localization database, the log file that logs the translation progress, and the package definition files that you create for translation. The default location for the root folder is in the L10N folder of your BMC Remedy Developer Studio workspace. When you are setting the root folder, you also have the option to configure the Localization Toolkit database to run on an AR system server instead of the default SQLite database. The SQLite database is sufficient for extracting applications that will result in a small database, but might not be adequate for a larger database. To set the location for the root folder, in BMC Remedy Developer Studio, choose Window Preferences. Click the BMC Remedy Localization Toolkit link. In the root folder field, use the default root folder that is displayed, or you can click Browse and choose a different folder. To configure the Localization Toolkit database to run on an AR system server, instead of the default SQLite database, select this checkbox. In the AR System Server field, select the name of the server you want to use. For better performance, use a different server from the one on which the Localization Toolkit is installed. Click Setup Database and click OK. An application is installed on the server you entered in the AR System Server field. The application is called BMC Remedy Localization Toolkit Database, and it contains 4 forms that the system uses. Now, you are ready to use the Localization Toolkit and create a localization package definition. In AR System Navigator, right-click Localization Package Definitions and choose New Package Definition. A new package definition is opened. In the Ignored Field Label Prefixes field, enter a comma-separated list of prefixes that are used in labels of fields that you do not want to localize. For example, to ignore all of the fields with labels that begin with ztemp, enter ztemp. In the Locales field, enter the locales to which you want to localize. Click the Browse button next to the field, then select the locales you want to include in the list. Here we will select Spanish and German. Select the Localize Currency Code Labels checkbox if you want to localize currency codes. In the Deployable Applications section, click Add and add the applications that you want to localize. For this demo, we are selecting the Video Store application. In the Independent Forms section, you can also add any independent forms that you want to localize along with the application. In the View ID Range section, you can enter a start and end range for generating view IDs when the Localization Toolkit creates a new localized view. View IDs are created from the same ranges as field IDs. If you want to specify a range that is outside of the reserved ranges, enter one that is large enough to hold the view IDs of all the views that will be created. If you enter 0 in the start and end fields, the view IDs will be automatically generated in an unreserved range. For this demo, we will leave the number 0 in the fields. Finally, save and name the package. An XML file containing the configuration information is created in your root folder. After you create a localization package definition, you can extract the strings for localization. In the localization package definition, go to the Localize section and click Extract Strings. If you have attachment or help files, see the white paper called Localizing Your BMC Remedy Action Request System Application to learn what happens to attachments and help files during the extraction process. The strings that will be localized are added to the localization database, which is in the l10n.db file in the root folder. XML localization interchange file format files, XLIF files, are XML-based and help to standardize localization. The next step in the process is to export the extracted strings to an XLIF file for translators. In the localization package definition, click Export Strings. In the Localization Items Export dialog box, enter the full path to the target XLIF file that will contain the extracted strings from the l10n.db file. If the file you enter does not exist, then it is created. If you specify a full path, the file is created at that location. If you specify only a file name, the file is created in the root folder. Select the locale you want to localize to. Here we are selecting Spanish. Select the state of the strings you want to translate. Here we are selecting Ready to Translate. Click OK. An XLIF XML file is created. This is the file that your translators will use. The next step in the process is to translate the strings. For an accurate translation, BMC recommends that you send the XLIF file to professional translators. If you want to create a mock-up of translated strings, you can click the Translate Strings button, and the Localization Toolkit will programmatically translate strings through Google Translate. The translation might not be clean and completely accurate, but you can use the translated strings to get an idea of how your translated views will look. Optionally, you can translate each string manually with the Localization Details dialog box. To do so, click Translation Status. The Details tab displays the Translation Status panel. Select the locale you want to view. Click the number link next to Ready to Translate, and the Localization Item Details dialog box appears. In the Localization Item section, select the string that you want to translate. If you click the plus sign next to the string, the panel lists the locations where the string appears. For example, the assigned string maps to an option for the status field on the Vid Checkout History form. Enter the translated text in the translation field. From the State field list, select Ready for Review. Note also that you can click Translation History to view the history of each string's translation. This string has not yet been translated, so there is no history. If you sent the XLIF file to translators, they will return a translated file to you. The next step in the process is to import this file so that you can create new localized views or update previously translated views. If you manually translated the strings, you can skip this step. In BMC Remedy Developer Studio, open the Localization Package definition, click Import Strings, and in the Localization Items Import dialog box, enter the path to the translated XLIF file. Click OK. If you have attachments that were translated, see the white paper called Localizing Your BMC Remedy Action Request System Application for more information. Next, you are ready to have the Localization Toolkit create localized views, message catalog entries, and configuration data. If you have already run through this process, the Localization Toolkit updates existing views, messages, and data. To create or update the content in the Localization Package definition, click the Create or Update Views link. The locale abbreviation is appended to each new view name, not the view label. For example, a Spanish locale's view name includes -es at the end of the name. Now you can review the forms, views, and fields that were localized to make sure the translation is accurate. Open the Localization Package definition. Click Translation Status. The Details tab displays the Translation Status panel. Select the language. Click the number link next to Ready for Review. The Localization Item Details dialog box appears. In the Localization section, select the string that you want to review. Here, we will review Assign To. Review the text in the Translation field and edit as necessary. When your forms are localized, the views might become skewed because the translation might increase the size of the field label. Review the view layouts and resize fields that are not sized properly. For example, we need to resize this field's data box. We also need to resize this field so that the label does not overlap the options. When you install the Localization Toolkit, the BMC Remedy Developer Studio Analyzer option includes a rule called Space Between Label and Data Box. This rule can check the views you want to localize. If you select this rule, the analyzer reports any fields with inadequate space for translating labels. This means that the button or the space between the field label and the beginning of the field's data box is not long enough to accommodate translations to languages that require more space. The default amount of extra space required to pass the rule is 30% of the label name, which allows for translation from English to languages with longer translations. For more details, see the white paper called Localizing Your BMC Remedy Action Request System Application and the Workflow Objects Guide. We've now covered all the high-level steps for using the Localization Toolkit to localize your application. Next, here's a quick overview of how to update the AR System server. First, you'll want to localize system forms such as user, group, and homepage forms using the Localization Toolkit. The system forms are installed with AR System. Create a localization package definition for system forms and add the forms to the Independent Forms section. Then use the AR System Message Catalog form to override system default messages with equivalent localized or customized entries. For more details, see the white paper called Localizing Your BMC Remedy Action Request System Application. Finally, you'll want to localize BMC Remedy mid-tier. To do so, follow this process. Step 1. Localize the mid-tier messages in the mid-tier properties files. For example, for a Spanish locale, you would localize the localized messages _es.properties file. You can find the .properties files for the localized languages that BMC supports in the classes subdirectory where the mid-tier is installed. Step 2. Localize the AR System Message Catalog form. Step 3. Select the Localized Server checkbox on the Advanced tab of the AR System Administration Server Information form. Step 4. Localize the Login and Logout pages. For more details, see the white paper called Localizing Your BMC Remedy Action Request System Application. We hope this video demo has helped you understand the high-level steps for using the Localization Toolkit. Thank you for watching.